Hi, welcome. This is a brief introduction to the past tense in Spanish. So, I want to start out by explaining that Spanish, just like English, has multiple different past tenses. We in English use a whole bunch of different past tenses all the time. We don't realize that we're using different past tenses. The same thing is happening in Spanish. So, one of the past tenses that we need to know about is called el pretérito. In English, that's the preterite. And another is called el imperfecto. And in English, that's the imperfect. El pretérito and el imperfecto are both used in different situations, and we'll cover those later. But right now, we'll cover them in more detail later. Right now, I want to give at least a basic understanding of what is the usage of el pretérito and el imperfecto. So, in general, el pretérito is used for completed actions that happen at a specific moment in time. So, there has to be a precise ending and beginning moment for this action. It happened and it's over. On the other hand, el imperfecto is used for actions that were long term in the past with no specific endings or beginnings. So anything that's going on for a long time in the past will probably be imperfecto. It can also be used for habitual actions that happened regularly in the past, over and over and over again. Maybe something that you used to do a lot as a child, and descriptions in the past of what things looked like or what things were like that don't actually include any action. So that is some general information. Let's look at some examples. On the left, we see examples of el pretérito. Remember, that's completed actions that begin and end at a precise moment. So 6 examples. I ran to the store. He paid for the shoes. She jumped over the puddle. They called at 4 p.m. I worked with Raul. We arrived at the party. Basically, all 6 of those sentences have a green highlighted verb. Each of those green verbs is el pretérito because they indicate actions that occurred at a specific moment in the past and they are over. So I ran, he paid, she jumped, they called, I worked, we arrived. It could be that some of those actions took a long time to complete, but they happened at a specific time and they are over. There's an ending and a beginning to each of those actions. On the other side, we see el imperfecto. And as a reminder, that's long term actions in the past, no clear ending or beginning, habitual actions, and descriptions. So that first example says, I was running when I saw the eagle. Was running shows that this is a long term action that was in the past. There might not be a clear ending or beginning. We're not sure how long this was taking. But then it got interrupted by seeing this eagle. So I was running is this long-term action. So that is imperfecto. I saw the eagle happened at a specific moment. So that would be pretérito. The next example says he was paying for the shoes when she arrived. Was paying. He was paying for the shoes. Was paying shows that it was taking a while. It's a long-term action in the past. It's not that he paid for the shoes in a moment. He was paying. We're not sure when it began or when it ended. So that is long-term action in the past. So that's imperfecto. When she arrived, I have arrived in green because she arrived at a specific moment. The next example says she always used to jump over the puddles on the sidewalk. Always used to jump shows that that's something that was habitual. Perhaps she did this frequently. We're not talking about any one specific time that she did this. So that makes it a habitual action. There's no clear ending or beginning, so it has to be imperfecto. Next example, they were calling me, but I wasn't answering. We've got 2 verbs there. Were calling and wasn't answering. Neither of them really have a clear ending or beginning. Both of them kind of indicate that it was going on for a while. They were calling me. Not they called me once, but they were calling me. It was a long-term thing. Also, I wasn't answering. It's not that I didn't answer one time, but I wasn't answering for an extended period of time. So both of those would be long-term actions in the past. So we use el imperfecto. Next example, I always used to work with Raul. Always used to work shows that this work happened habitually. It was over and over again. You always used to do it. We're not talking about a one specific time when you worked with Raul, but I always used to work with Raul makes it habitual. So that's also imperfect. Next three are all descriptions. So let's look at this first one. The house was huge. That's a past tense description of the house. There's not an action there. We're just describing the size of this house. So that is a past tense description. So it's imperfecto. We also are assuming that this is kind of a long-term thing. It's not that the house was huge for a split second. It was huge for a long time in the past. So that would make it imperfecto. My friends were very kind. We're describing a characteristic of my friends in the past. So that would also be, since it's a description, el imperfecto. She was tall. Again, another description. We're describing the physical stature of this person in the past. It's not that she was tall for 2 seconds. She was tall long term. It's a description and it's in the past. So all of that makes us use el imperfecto. I hope one thing that I want to point out about el imperfecto is the word was and were is often paired with imperfecto in English. In Spanish, we'll do it differently. We'll learn that later. But if you're trying to determine if a certain sentence in English will require imperfecto or not, in Spanish, if it's using was or were, it's probably going to use imperfecto. I was running. He was playing. They were calling. I wasn't answering. The house was huge. My friends were kind. She was tall. A lot of times that's a flag for el imperfecto. Next, I want to talk about some interrupting actions. Often, el pretérito and el imperfecto may occur in the same sentence. When this happens, it's common for a verb in el pretérito to interrupt something that is happening in el imperfecto in the long term. So let's look at these three examples. The first one says he was sleeping when I called. He was sleeping. That's a long-term thing. We're not sure when it started. We're not sure when it ended. But then I called, and that happened at a specific moment, and it interrupted the sleeping. So he was sleeping is el imperfecto, and I called is el pretérito. Next example, I was gardening when it started to rain. I was gardening. We don't know how long I was gardening. There's no clear ending or beginning to this gardening. It's a long-term action in the past, so that's el imperfecto. But then at a specific instant, it started to rain. So started is el pretérito. Last example, we were eating when Amos arrived. We were eating. We don't know when we started eating. It's not clear how long we had been eating. It's clear that the action of eating has not been completed because then it gets interrupted when Amos arrives. So we were eating is el imperfecto. Amos arrived at a specific instant, so that would be el pretérito. So basically in each of these sentences, the verbs highlighted in orange are el imperfecto, and they refer to long-term actions in the past. And in each sentence, the green verb in el pretérito interrupts the long-term action. Here's some examples that we'll work through. I'm just going to talk through each of these, and our task is to determine if the yellow verb in each sentence is el pretérito or el imperfecto. So looking at number one, we've got two sets of verbs. I was watching television when the door opened. Was watching. Was watching is long term. We don't know when it began. We don't know when it ended. So that's a long-term action. So that would be imperfecto. And then the door opened. That happened at a specific moment with a clear ending and beginning. So that is el pretérito. We see that long-term, imperfecto, completed action, pretérito. So that is was watching and opened. Number two, she left the house at 8 a.m. She left the house at a specific moment. It was not a long-term action of leaving. It just happened, and it is over. So that is a completed action. Preterite. El pretérito. Number three, the windshield cracked. That is something that happened at a specific instant. The windshield cracked. So that is a completed action. El pretérito. Number four, the windshield was cracked. Now that's not an action anymore. It's just a description of the windshield. And descriptions are always el imperfecto. So number four is imperfecto. Number five, I ate a sandwich this morning. I ate the sandwich. It's something that happened this morning. We know when it happened. It's over. I'm not still eating it. So that would be a completed action, which is el pretérito. Number 6, the car stopped at the light. The car stopped. It happened, it's over, it's not still stopping, there's an ending to this action, so that's a completed action, el pretérito. Number 7, the car was stopping when the light changed. Now this is different. We've got a similar situation of a car stopping, but now it says the car was stopping. So now it's a long-term action because we don't know when it started stopping or if it ended stopping. It might not have ever finished stopping. So that means was stopping is a long-term action, so that is imperfecto. And then the light changed, that would be a preterite, completed action, el pretérito, because the light changed at a specific moment in time. Number 8, my friend sang during the musical. My friend sang. We know exactly when they sang. It was during the musical. The musical's over, so that is a completed action, pretérito. Number 9, the flowers were beautiful. This is a description of the flowers. We're talking about what they looked like, so that would be imperfecto. Number 10, my friends always used to sing in musicals when she was a child. Now we are talking about a habitual action in the past. We're not talking about a specific moment when my friend sang because she did it over and over again. She always used to sing. So, since there's not a specific ending or beginning and it's something that happened multiple times, that's got to be habitual action, which is imperfecto. Number 11, I always used to bake cookies with my brother. Always, same thing here, always used to bake. Since I always did it, it was going on a lot. Then that would have to be habitual action. There's not a specific time of baking cookies that I'm talking about. I always used to do it. So that is habitual imperfecto. Number 12, I baked cookies with my brother yesterday. Now I'm talking about a specific moment when I baked these cookies. So that makes it a completed action. It's not a habit anymore. It's something, a specific event that occurred at a specific time yesterday. So that is a completed action, pretérito. The last one, number 13, the tree was tall. There's no action here. It's just a description of the tree. So that is a description, and that is imperfecto. Finally, I just want to give a quick comparison of el pretérito and imperfecto, and when you would use these. So as a review, number 1, for el pretérito, there's really only one usage that we need to know right now. We'll go into more detail later. El pretérito is for completed actions in the past with a specific ending and beginning moment. This often corresponds with English words that end in ed, like jumped, learned, talked, called, opened, closed. If it ends in ed and it's a past tense verb in English, it's probably going to signify the use of the preterite tense in Spanish. So that is what we need to know about the preterite. El imperfecto has 3 different uses. One is long-term action in the past with unclear beginning or ending. Often in English, that it will be signified by was or were, like I was sleeping, he was eating. It's in the past, but we're not exactly sure how long it was lasting or when it began or when it ended. The second use of el imperfecto is habitual actions in the past. That's often used with the phrase used to in English. For example, I used to sleep late a lot, or I used to eat cookies. Anything with what you used to do shows that you did it more than once. So we can't talk about any one specific beginning and ending moment. If it becomes habitual, you're doing it more than once, then that is el imperfecto. Finally, we have descriptions in the past for el imperfecto, and often that also uses the word was or were in English. And there's no action, it's just a description. The car was red, the tree was tall, anything like that. Hopefully this is helpful. This is just basic information about the difference between preterite and imperfect in English before you begin to learn how to conjugate these verbs. It's important to understand how they will be used. Later on, we'll go into greater detail once you know how to conjugate them on how to use each one.